If you are struggling to complete your Tuck Everlasting novel study homework packet, this is an overview that is designed for you. We're going to start on the cover. You should have your name on this. Many people have already started losing their packets simply because they don't have their name on them. The packet is due Wednesday, March 6th. That is the same day as our Tuck for Everlasting. You can leave the rest of the packet blank. This is how the assignment will be graded. So you will be graded on whether or not your work is neat and organized, all sections are completed, the work is accurate, and the work shows effort and thoughtfulness. You will also be graded on completion of the packet itself. If we go to the very first section, these are the chapter titles. So the chapter title directions say, create a title for each chapter as you read. Remember that a title may be any of the following: a main idea, the name of a character, a quote, the name of a place, or an image or event. You are completing a chapter title for every single one of the chapters. Now, you don't want it to be something random, right? Our book is Tuck Everlasting. So you shouldn't include something about the Wizard of Oz or Post-it notes, because those have nothing to do with Tuck Everlasting. Now, I'll be using the prologue as our example. It was the very first one that we did together in class. If I remember back to the prologue, it was just one short page, and there was something that really stuck out to me. Throughout this whole introduction, they're describing how the story takes place at the beginning of summer, and they use a very specific phrase. It says here, "These are strange and breathless days, the dog days, when people are led things they are they are sure to be sorry for after." That phrase really meant a lot for me, and I'm going to use it to remember that this story takes place in summer. So I'm going to call this chapter, The Dog Days of Summer. Now, you should have a title for every chapter, all the way up through the end of the novel by the time that the packet is complete. The next section in the packet is the daily discussion questions. These discussion questions are not for every chapter, but for every group of chapters. We do see, though, that for the prologue, there is just one question for this part of the book. And the question says, how do the woods represent the hub of a wheel for the three events that are connected in the village of the Tree Gap? So I would go up to the next page. See here where it says Day 1? The discussion question directions ask me to write down the question and then answer it with explanation. Notice how this question has already been written for me. But for the other days, I am going to need to be able to write the question before I answer it. This is done neatly. See how the question doesn't take up all of the space? Here I see, how do the woods represent the hub of a wheel for the three events that are connected in the village of Tree Gap? And what I would say, and I'm going to do a complete sentence, is the woods represent the hub of a wheel because all three events take place around it, just like the outside of a wheel. See how I answered the question and I explained it? You need to be doing the same thing for every day of the questions. That includes writing the question and answering it. If you're looking just for the points, writing the answer is going to be worth more points than writing the question. So if you're running out of time, go for the answer versus the question. Let's read the directions for the next section, counting on characters. Below is a list of important characters from Tuck Everlasting. You should write down important pieces of information about each character, such as characteristics, appearance, relationships with other characters, feelings, actions, character traits, how they change throughout the novel, etc. Keeping good notes here will help you study and keep you from becoming confused by all the different characters we encounter in the novel. Include at least 8 pieces of information. Let's underline this, 8 pieces of information for the following individuals: Tuck family, May Tuck, Angus Tuck, Winnie Foster, Man in the Yellow Suit, Jessie Tuck, and Miles Take. Tuck. All right, let's double check which ones those are so I know that they have to be 8. So I see Tuck family. I'll put a little 8 up here. I see May Tuck, another 8. Angus Tuck, I need 8 pieces. Winnie Foster, I need 8 pieces. The man in the yellow suit, I need 8. Jesse, I need 8. And Miles, I need 8. What about the other ones? Here it says, include at least 2 pieces of information for the following individuals. Foster family, Toad, Granny Tuck, Mrs. Foster, Constable, and Mr. Foster. So for these last ones, I just need 2 pieces of information for each of them. So here I have 2, 2, and 2. This is going to be easy because I've learned so much about each of the characters. So thinking back about what we've read about the novel, I would say the Tuck family says they can live forever. Okay, that's one piece. I did one. Now, I also could say the family gets together for 10-year reunions. So I'll say 10-year reunions. Okay, that's 2. I could also say that they get pretty lonely. That's a characteristic of the family, since they can't have many friends. There's 3. Look how quick that was. I just need to find 5 more characteristics to describe them. I'm going to do the same thing for May and for Angus, which is Pa Tuck, and for Winnie Foster. Then for the remaining ones at the very end, I'll just need to do 2 pieces of description for them. Pretty easy, but will definitely be helpful when it's time to take our exam. This last part is what many of you have been saying is the most difficult. We had a lesson on writing different types of questions, and this is taking advantage of it. Here it says, Tuck Everlasting Questioning Guidelines. There are 4 different types of questions. Right there, where the answer can be found right in the book. Think and Search, where the answer is in the book, but you have to think carefully about the whole story. Author and Me, where the answer can be found using your own thoughts and knowledge, as well as information found in the text. On My Own, where the answer can be found in your own thoughts and knowledge. You don't have to read the book to answer this type of question. Here are the directions. I'm going to put a star next to this. You are responsible for creating questions relating to Tuck Everlasting. You must be thorough with your questions and really think about each question category that you would be placed into. You will complete 3 questions for each day we read the novel. So this is for each day. It's not for each chapter. You must include 1 right there question, 1 think and search question, and 1 either on my own or author and me question. So I get to choose right here. And then here it says, after writing your questions, be sure to label them appropriately under the type of question column. Also, you must answer the questions you created. Be thoughtful and specific with your responses. Now, let's look at the chart that we're going to complete these questions in. Here we see the first column is the day, then the question, the type of question, and the answer. Now, I know that on the first day, we just read the prologue. So I'm going to write day 1, and day 1. Okay? I have to write 3 questions each day. So if I wanted to, I could set this up and say day 2, day 2, day 2, day 3, day 3, day 3, and so on and so on. So I have 3 for each day. Now I need to decide my questions, and I'm going to pause and move over to our question guidelines to help you with the type of questions. Let's first start to think of our right there question, where the answer can be found directly in the book. Here's our partially fallen down poster that describes the right answer questions. These are questions where you don't have to use your brain at all. The answer can just be found in the book. I like these question frames for this type of question. What is, who is, how many, according to the passage, and where is. Let's take these frames and go back to our packet. I know that the first type of question that I'm going to write is a right there question. I'm going to write that in the type of question. Now, the right there question is something that I can find directly in the book. So I'm going to look back to the prologue and I think about, okay, I know that the dog days of summer are important. So I'm going to think, okay, when is the days that are described as the dog days of summer? Okay, so I'll write that here. When are the dog days of summer? Okay. Notice that my question starts with one of those right there frames. When blank. Okay. Now, in order for it to be a right there question, I have to find the answer directly in the book. And if I see in that first line, it says the first week of August. That is the dog days of summer. So I would say the dog days of summer are the first week of August. Okay, there we go. I've got one question for the prologue done. Now it's on to the second question. My second question has to be a think and search question. These are questions where the answer is in the book, but I have to look around a little bit, and I have to use my brain a little bit more for a right there question. Let's go look at the frames for these types of questions. Here's our poster for think and search questions. It says, what is the main idea of, summarize, or what caused, and then compare and contrast. Let's take these question frames back and write a question for the prologue. All right, I'm going to use that summarize feature. I'm going to call it summarize the 3 events that are described in the prologue. That information is there, but I have to make it more concise. So I'm going to take it here, and I know during the prologue, Winnie thinks about running away. May leaves the wood. And a stranger appears. All right, and then I'm done with that question. For our last question, we have some options. It can be an author and me question or an on my own question. Let's look at all those frames to see which one I'm going to do. So an author and me question is a question where I make an inference. The answer is not in the story, but you do have to think about what the author tells you and what you already know. So these can be inference questions, mostly like, what do you think will happen kind of questions based on the passage. Or who do you think someone is? Or what kind of suggestions do you think the author is making? And on my own question isn't in the text. You could answer this question without even reading anything. All right, let's use these frames and go back to our packet. All right, I'm very curious about this last line in the book, but sometimes people find this out too late. I'm going to ask, what do you think the author means by the last line of the prologue? So here I have, what do you think the author means in the last line of the prologue? Now, I have to decide, is this an author and me question or an on my own? Since I have to reference the book, I need to be able to read the last line of the prologue. So this would mean it is an author and me. I cannot answer this question without having knowledge about the book. But I do have to use my own brain as well. The answer is not in the text. It doesn't tell me. Now it's time to answer the question. So here I have, the last line means that something bad is going to happen in the story related to these events. I'm done with this set of questions. I have 3 questions for day 1. I will need to complete this same process of writing 3 different questions for each of the days of reading. So we see, day 1 was just the prologue. And we have day 2 is chapters 1 and 2, and so on, and so on, and so on. So there will be a total of 12 days of reading, which means a total of 36 questions on your question guide. That's it for our summary of our packet. This will be a really helpful review for your exam on Tuck.